Present practice. What is vibing? This is Vish, and how are you? You see, right now, if you were to ask me that same question, I would answer by just keeping it transparent and saying present. Now, if I were to describe the mind, let's just say a little antsy, as well as a little nervous. I'm keeping it fully transparent for you all. And part of the reason as to why that's the case is because I am currently recording and filming from this little green belty area behind my house. And it's, to keep it simple, I'm in Austin, Texas, United States of America, and there are lots of snakes in this particular part of the region of the country. We're talking both regular and venomous, so a little fear is present. I'm going to be fully transparent with that. So anyways, how are you? You see, how are you is a very interesting question, and actually I'm noticing this kind of getting bent, the angle, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Hopefully that does the job. Yeah, I think that did something, if anything. But basically, how are you? It's a very basic and common question. I mean, it's the first thing you ask someone, right? When you go up to someone new, a stranger, like how are you today? Or usually how are you today? Or how are you in general is a very basic question that's asked. And again, it's very common, right? Whether it's strangers, whether it's people that you know, your friends, family, even your mom or sister, or your close relatives. How are you? It is very, very commonly used. But let us look deeper into the how are you? Deeper into what that means. First off, the R is really just a conjunction word. I'm no English expert, so maybe that's not even the right term to use for that. But I'm not going to give the R much importance because it's just helping to connect these two words. But the key words here are the how and the you. How are you? But the how and the you. You see, when people usually are asked, how are you? The first response usually is either, I'm good, I'm okay, could be better, I'm okay, whatever, things like that, right? Now let's break that down and let's look into that. When you're asking someone, how are you? You see, when you're asking someone who you are, it's trying to describe and figure out. I know that's a very basic word by itself, but the who is really just to identify. It's really just to identify. Identify the person, the who. The what is usually, what are you, right? I mean, that's not something that's too often used. But when you ask someone, what are you? It's almost, at least the first thing that comes to me is during arguments or fights or something more serious like that. It's like, what are you? Like a monster or like whatever, right? And that's usually inferring and going after the idea of what are you made of? What makes you? Right? So what are you essentially translates to what makes you. But anyways, not trying to get sidetracked. Where I'm trying to go with this is to essentially help answer the question of how are you. I'm trying to help cross out what is not how are you, which is the what are you, who are you, and so on, right? So now if you're not if you're not essentially getting asked what you're made out of, and if you're not getting asked to identify yourself, you still give the go-to answer of I'm good, I'm this, I'm that. So you're literally, in a way, and I'm kind of having this pop, as I like to call them right now, coming to this point of giving a very, it's like a dialed in answer, a very robotic answer, that is. And you don't think about it, you're not conscious. The whole idea and kind of why I'm making this series is just to help bring about awareness to awareness. Now, I think someone's coming, so I'm gonna give a quick second break.
It's like a 6-way cup.
That's cute.
And it did that the second night too. We watched a movie that way.
Oh,
Yeah, like it was cool.
that's adorable.
Hey.
How's it going?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, kind of going back to what I was saying, and I like to keep these footages completely raw and unfiltered and unedited. So what you're seeing is a complete raw footage, and it's really just at the end because I want this to be real as it gets, and that's why I don't edit anything. You just saw that whole thing. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, what I'm trying to break down and like really help do is bring awareness to awareness. That's it. That's all I'm doing, and that's what I'm trying to do, at least with regards to this specific series / channel. So, how are you? I'm good, I'm sad, I'm happy, I am feeling great. You're literally giving answers about what you're made out of, as well as making an identification. I am this, I am that. Now, I don't know what the right answer would be. I'm not even going to say that these aren't right answers, but all that I'm saying is that you're giving answers to who are you and what are you, but not how. What does it mean when you question how are you? How to solve something. That's the first thing that comes to the mind. How do I get from here to there? How do I get my point across to you? Literally, if you look at all these other examples of the how that's being used, what you'll notice is that, also let's make sure there's no other creatures behind or next to me, but when you usually respond to these questions, it's trying to figure something out. How? That's literally what it is. You're trying to figure something out. How? How to do something, or how to... Ah, wow, these are actually really connecting now. You're usually, when you're using the word how, it's usually going after solving something and trying to figure out what the best way is to solve that. That's what the how is, literally, how. But now, we've just so unconsciously been programmed to answer the same exact question of how are you, to essentially giving what you're made out of, giving an answer which is based off what you're made out of, and identifying yourself with that thing, which is the goodness. You see that you're good implies that you're made out of goodness, and you are that. So you're literally giving answers to the how, to the who and the what. But that's not the case. And I guess where I'm going with this is to truly break down and rationalize how we shouldn't even be using the word how. Now, I know should and shouldn't can come off as a bit strong, and I don't want to come off as someone that's telling you to do this or to not do that. I do not want to come off as any sort of authoritative figure, and that is not what I'm doing here. But really, the intent, at least, is to, like I said, spread awareness to awareness. So how are you? That shouldn't be, or I know I said shouldn't, but let's just go along with this for the sake of getting the point across. Instead of saying how are you, I think a more profound question would be, who are you? It was actually a very deep question, apparently, and this is what I've understood, and I will have to do more research on this, but apparently that was a question that helped the sage Ramana Maharishi become enlightened. To determine who you are, I mean, you might first say, and this is getting a little detracted from the initial question, but I think this is the question that we need to start asking, because naturally, as we start asking these questions to each other, instead of how are you, I mean, we've used it so often, how are you? But now I'm suggesting to just say, who are you, or ask who are you, you will start naturally getting that curiosity of giving an answer which would be more fitting to leading you towards the truth of the answer as to what is, or not what, but as to who you are. Now, usually when you say who are you, you give the first answer, which is, you know, your name. I'm Vish. But what if I was born with a different name? So then you'd realize that you're actually not the name. The name is a very temporary or transient piece of paper, if anything, on your birth certificate. It doesn't define you, really. If anything, you saying that I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling that, or I'm happy, or I'm sad, whatever, that is more indicative of who you are, because that is how the mind and body is feeling in this present moment. So when you say that, you're literally getting actually a step closer to who you are than just saying I'm Vish, or I'm this, I'm that. Because those are literally just pieces of paper. Yeah, that's it. So, to keep this simple and to wrap this all up now, what I've been realizing and what I highly encourage you all to start doing now, and maybe I'll do this, maybe I won't, I mean, it's more like just a recommendation. And anyways, the point is, instead of asking how are you, let's start asking each other who you are. And the best route is to start saying things that you are not, actually. So I guess actually another recommendation would be, when you're asking people who you are, instead of saying I'm this, I'm that, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling happy, start by giving answers as to who you're not. Because when you start figuring out what you're not, you will get closer to who you really are. And if one sage or one guy could get enlightened through that question, again, that's what I've heard, so it's an assumption I'm being honest about, then that means that we all could get there too. And wouldn't the world be a much more beautiful place if we were all enlightened? So, who are you? Not how are you? Appreciate you taking the time. Make a great day. Take this joyfully. Present, practice. Stay conscious, and ecstasy.